Welcome back to Getting to Green. Today's episode we're going to build and we're going to be working with PHPUnit. So let's dive into it. Alright, so here's my little code editor, not code editor, this is my git bash. CB, CD into Getting to Green, and our to-do app, right? And let's just open that up in VS Code. And pull it over here. Okay. All right, so this is our episode 2. So we are going to be building up our tests. So Laravel already has a tests area, which we have some stuff in here. You can see there's already a to-do test. There isn't anything in this, and I'm just going to delete it because it shouldn't have been there. But so what we can do here with Laravel, we have access to something called PHP Artisan. And what that can do is make our test for us. We're just going to call this, like we saw before, to do test. And this is going to spin up our little test here in a second. All right, and as you can see, we have our little test here. Push this out of the way. And pretty much nothing in here that really screams anything important. We have a little example test that just proves that it's working, but don't really need it. So we're going to delete it. So with our tests, we can do something, and we just saw this with the example test, but we could do a public function, and we can name this test something happens, right? And so that is how you can run a test by prefixing it with the words test. Or, and what I prefer, is actually doing an annotation on the top with the dot blocks. You could do @test. And this is exactly the same thing. So if we do a public function here, test, and we're going to misspell it again too, some thing, I spelled it even worse this time, yada yada yada, right? So these would also be this, you don't need to test them. So this does the same thing as this would be. So these are essentially the same exact test. But I personally prefer this way. I think it reads a little nicer. This is the test, and this is what the test is testing for. So let's go ahead, and I have a code snippet set up already. So when I write the word test, it just automatically does that for me. So the first thing we want to do is we're going to test a to-do can be created. Okay? And what we're going to want to do is we have 3 phases in our tests. The first is like our setup phase, and then our actions phase, and then our assert phase, right? With this, we don't really need any setup. There's nothing that we need within the database to really do anything for us. So let's just start with the act phase, right? So why don't we do this? We're going to do post. We're going to post it to do. And what we're going to be posting is we're going to have a title, and that title is going to be my first to do, right? And then we expect this assert equals, so the first thing is, you can see here, the expected goes first, followed by the actual, and then you can have a message here, and this is for when it fails. You can have a little bit extra clarity of what it was that fails, and we're going to make use of that later on, but it pretty much just kind of helps you see what test is really failing. And my face is actually covering that, so let's get rid of me. So that does that. So we have assert equals, and like I said, the first is the expected, so my first to do, right? And we're expecting that out of the response, which we don't have yet. This returns something, so we're going to name this response. And we just need to get the title out of that. So if I run this now, we're going to see that there's a lot going wrong here, right? To-do can not found exception. So it gets a little kind of wonky. It's kind of hard to see sometimes where exactly the error happens, but you can suss it out. So really what's happening is we don't actually have a route for that. So if we go and we create, so within our web file, this is our routes. We can get rid of that. See, we don't have any routes for that to do. So we could come down here, route. This is a post route, and we want that to go to to-do. And in the option of sliming it out, we could follow what's up here. We could have a function that returns something, and we could get really gross with it, right? Function return a response that is JSON, and inside there we're going to just have a title of my first to-do, right? So this, if we run that again, gives us another failure. Let's see. Unexpected end of file. Just missing a semicolon. This should have worked. Response. Turn. Oh. Right. So we got to green. So pretty much we just slimed it out. That's what it's called. You're just kind of trying to get to the end result as fast as possible. This, it looks stupid. It feels dumb when you're first getting into it. But what this kind of proves is there's going to be a test that drives everything that you're actually building. So there's no chance of you building something without having a test on top of it. So here we have this. It proves a point. It doesn't really do much for us. So if we create another one, so test, let's see, I'll do the second one. Two to-dos can be created, right? So we're going to create 2 of these. We don't need the response here. So this is my first to-do and my second to-do. And whoop. So what we can do here is we could go into the to-do, which we don't have yet, but sliming it out. So to-do, we're going to find, let's see, latest, right? I think that's how it's, latest, right? We're going to tap this and function to do. All right, and what we could do in here is this assert equals my second to do. And this will be my to do title. So let's see what happens here. So if I run this test, all right, so we're getting a failure. To do not found, so that's the first thing. So let's see how to get that to the next error, right? So again, PHP artisan make model, right? And this is going to be our to do model, right? So do that. We come in here, we can pull this in. Oh, there we go. All right, that pulls it in on the top right here, app models to do, and we can look up here, app models, and there's our brand new to do. All right, nothing in it, nothing fancy yet, but it is now pulled into our test, no squiggly line. Run the test again, and we're on to the next thing. So property tile does not exist on Elegant Builder. So we, I think, what does this get? So this should give us a different error. Select all from to-dos, right? So no connection could be made because the target machine actively refused it. It's a little bit of a kind of a weird message, right? It's not really informative of what's happening, but we didn't create a database. We don't have it running. Within our test, though, we could leverage something called refresh. I'm going to use it. Use refresh database. This gets pulled in automatically right there. Now what this should do is spin up a database for us. Well, actually it won't. Let's go figure out why. PHPUnit actually has this XML here. So if you look here, we can go through. It has all of the stuff that we want for our tests and everything, right? But we also set up environment variables for our testing. So Laravel ships with this, and this is something that they added for us, which is really nice. So these env variables for our database connection and our actual database. So we can uncomment those, and that just means that we're going to create an SQLite database. That's our connection, and we're going to actually create the database within memory. We don't need to spin up an actual physical database. We can just run it within memory. It makes it really fast, easy to kind of just create without having to worry about it. If you wanted to create a full database, you could create a different one here. You could use SQLite. You could use something different, like whatever you want to do, MariaDB or whatever, right? And then you could test it in there. Your actual database, you can actually create that, so you'd have to spin up a server in order to have that, but I'm actually not running a server right now. All of this was on my local machine, no server, and it's a Windows machine, but I'm able to run PHP as is without actually having to worry about any of that stuff. So let's go back to our test, and now let's see what happens here. So this should actually give us a different error. And no such table to-dos. That's all right. So we actually didn't make a to-do. That's fine. So PHP artisan make migration. We're going to create to-dos table, right? So it's a kind of like a magic string here. We're creating a new table. It's the to-dos table. Here's the name of the table that we're going to do, and notice that we're putting an S here. This is something that Laravel likes to do. It's you know, if you're going to be storing anything in a database, you're going to be storing multiple of them, so it likes having the S. But if you chose not to have it, you can leave it off. It's up to you. It doesn't mind either way, right? So I'll run that. It's creating this for us, which is now within our database migrations right here, brand new file. And this is all that it does. So if we run that test again, the to-dos should actually exist now. But the title doesn't exist on the instance again. All right, so let's do table, title, string, title, right? Run the test again. Let's see if anything changes. Title doesn't even happen on there. So what does that mean? Well, it's pulling from our models, but we're not actually saving anything to it. So let's go back to our web, and let's actually start using this the way we'd want to, right? So when we post something, we'd want to we want to create, and what we're going to do is we're going to the title, and we're going to do a request title, and the function, we do request here, request, okay, and we're going to do return, make this a to-do. What's that? Return to-do. Gotta import that, so that's imported now at the top. Boop. All right, run again. Oh, probably need to import this as well. We want illuminate HTTP request. Run that again. Let's see what we're getting to now. Title does not exist on this collection instance. Let's still go back. Maybe there's something that we're missing here. To do latest get Okay, so what we could do is do an order by, and we're going to order by ID, ASC, and we're just going to get the first one of that. That should give us something here, and that's the second one, so let's actually descend it, which would be the correct way to do it. There you go. So we're now at green. So we're getting our second one, which is great. This just helps us always get the latest. There's other ways to do this, but I like doing this. And tap is just something that helps writing these tests kind of quickly. We don't have to save it into its own variable and stuff. So it's a little cleaner. It shows everything kind of grouped together. All right, so that is a little bit more. Now, if we do here, if I do this test again, this is also still passing, but we can actually now see it fail because we're actually storing this to the database. So that's all working well. So now while we have this, why don't we refactor to something a little bit nicer than this? What we can do is we could do PHP artisan make controller, and this is going to be our ToDo's controller. Now this is up to you, ToDo's or ToDo controller. It doesn't really matter. So I'm just going to do this, right? We're going to go here. And they included this new in one of the versions of Laravel, but you can actually just import your class here. So ToDo's controller class and the method that you want to do, so store, right? And all of this, we can go into ToDo's controller, and in here, we can create a method called store. All right, so this is close to what we had. But if we go here, we run our test again, we should see something happen. Yeah, we're failing. ToDo not found. Okay, so we go back to here. Yeah, we just haven't imported that. And we don't have request either. So if we run this, we'll see that we don't have the request. It'll show up way up here. Undefined variable request. We just haven't done that. Request. Right? Double check that's imported. I think it is. Yep. Have that already. And our ToDo. Run that again. And we're back to green. So come back to our web. And there's a little cleanup here. It's nice that the IDE kind of shows things that are grayed out that are not actually being used, so we can remove those. And everything will still work. All right, so we just set up PHPUnit to be working with our ToDo's. We have the ToDo's created. We have them storing to our database. We have a controller for them. And we can start seeing how the different routes are being entwined with this. And as we continue with this in the next video, we're going to start getting into the validation of the input, which is just going to be a quick small example essentially because it's just the one input. But we're going to learn a lot more of how to really dive deeper into all the validations and everything. All right, so if this video helped with anything, if you learned anything, consider leaving a like, maybe subscribing to the channel, and we can continue together down this road and creating our little ToDo app. All right, well, I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.